Have you ever really stopped to think about what keeps the buildings we're in every day safe from fire? It's not just the obvious stuff like sprinklers and fire extinguishers. There's this whole invisible system working constantly behind the scenes, a kind of playbook written to save lives. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that playbook.
I mean, protecting a house is one thing, but a skyscraper, an airport terminal, a hospital, that's a whole different ballgame. These huge, complex places need a level of fire protection that goes way, way beyond that little smoke detector you have on your ceiling. We are talking about a seriously intricate network of tech and engineering, and it's all guided by one critical standard. When you strip everything else away, the entire philosophy of fire safety boils down to this one simple, powerful goal. It is all about buying time. Every single sensor, every alarm, every flashing light is designed for one reason: to give people enough of a head start to get somewhere safe.
So, how do we get from that simple beep to a system that can protect a skyscraper? Well, a modern fire alarm isn't just some lonely device on a wall. It's a critical piece of a much bigger life safety plan that includes everything from the materials the building is made of to the escape routes people will use. And this is the document that pulls it all together, NFPA 72. Just think of it as the ultimate rulebook for fire alarm and signaling systems here in the US. It's the gold standard that every engineer, installer, and safety inspector follows to make sure these life-saving systems are designed, installed, and maintained exactly right. Now, what's really interesting is that NFPA 72 isn't some rigid one-size-fits-all document. It gets that a regular office building has totally different needs than, say, a massive concert hall or a super-sensitive data center. So it actually offers two distinct ways to think about designing a system. And this slide lays out those two paths perfectly. On one hand, you have the prescriptive approach. This is just like following a recipe. The code tells you exactly where to put detectors, exactly how far apart they need to be. It's super clear, rule-based, and perfect for most standard buildings. But on the other hand, you've got the performance-based approach. Now, this is where you become a master chef. You don't have a rigid recipe. You have a goal to protect this unique, specific space, and you use your expertise to design a totally custom solution to meet that goal. That performance-based approach is where things get really fascinating. It's about moving beyond just checking off boxes on a list and truly engineering a system to handle a specific, real-world disaster before it ever happens. And the process is incredibly logical when you break it down. First, you define the goals. Are we mostly trying to protect people, or maybe priceless art? Or is it about keeping a business online? Second, you set really clear objectives, something like ensure no loss of life in the room where the fire starts. Third, and this is the cool part, engineers create fire scenarios. They literally game out how a disaster could unfold in that exact space. And finally, based on those scenarios, they pick the perfect detection strategy to beat that fire. Now, creating a fire scenario isn't just guesswork. It's a science. Engineers have to think about every single variable. What could possibly start the fire? What kind of fuel is around? And how is it arranged? I mean, a fire that starts with a pile of wood shavings in a corner is going to grow way faster than one starting on a solid block of wood out in the open. Every little detail matters if you want to create a realistic test for your design. Okay, so once you understand the kind of threat you're up against, you have to pick the right tools for the job. Not all fire detectors are the same. Each one is designed to look for a different telltale sign of a fire. You've basically got three main categories. Heat detectors are the most straightforward. They just sense a rapid jump in temperature. Smoke detectors are the ones we all know. They see the tiny particles that make up smoke. And then you have the really sophisticated stuff, radiant energy detectors. These things can actually detect the specific wavelength of infrared or UV light that a flame gives off, acting like an electronic eye that's constantly scanning for fire. But, just spotting the fire is only half the battle. The system then has to tell people what's happening. And in a moment of pure panic, clear communication can be the single most important factor for survival. And here's the crucial point. A loud, garbled voice over a speaker is worse than useless. It actually creates more confusion and panic. The goal isn't just volume, it's intelligibility. The message has to cut through the noise and the chaos and be absolutely crystal clear. And get this isn't just subjective. It's not a does it sound good kind of thing. NFPA 72 actually requires these systems to be tested for clarity using a metric called the Speech Transmission Index, or STI. A system has to hit an average score of at least 0.50 to be considered effective. It's a hard pass-fail grade for whether people can actually understand the instructions they're being given. The code even provides a blueprint for what that emergency message needs to contain. It boils down to answering the 5 W's. Who is speaking, which gives the message credibility, what you should do, clear, simple actions, where the danger is so you know if you're affected, when to act, which is pretty much always right now, and why, explaining what's happening to get people to respond quickly. Of course, a perfectly designed system is only as good as its maintenance. This brings us to the real-world side of NFPA 72. What happens with inspection, testing, and when a system isn't up to code? So, after an inspection, you'll find a tag on the main control panel. If you see a green tag, that's great news. It means the system's been checked out and is working exactly the way it's supposed to. It's a clean bill of health.
A yellow tag is a heads up. It's basically saying, hey, something's not quite right here. The system is still working, but there's a problem that needs to be fixed to make sure it stays fully compliant and reliable. It's a call to schedule some maintenance.
A red tag, though, that's a serious warning. That means a critical fault was found that actually messes with the system's ability to do its job. This isn't something you put off. It means there's a direct risk to everyone in the building, and it needs to be fixed immediately. And the consequences for ignoring these warnings or just failing to comply with the code? They are severe. We're talking about huge fines that can add up every single day, the real possibility of legal action, and yeah, the authorities can literally shut the building down entirely until everything is brought up to code. The stakes couldn't be any higher for safety and for business. So this leaves us with a final thought, and it goes right back to that idea of the recipe versus the chef. Is the safety system in your workplace, or the buildings you go to, designed just to follow a basic recipe and pass a test? Or was it truly designed by a chef, thoughtfully engineered to handle a real, chaotic, and unpredictable emergency? The answer to that question could make all the difference.
If you found this helpful or want to stay updated when this regulation changes, subscribe and support the channel. And if you need the full technical details on this CFR, click the link in the description below. See you next time.